Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here because what I'm about to share with you comes straight from the heart and from personal experience. If you're in your 50s, 60s, or 70s and you've been dealing with aches, fatigue, or the quiet frustration of feeling like your body just isn't what it used to be, then please know you're not alone. A few years ago, I was in a place I didn't expect to be. I was 65, retired, and for the first time in a long time, I had time to slow down. But instead of feeling free, I felt off. My joints hurt, my digestion was a mess, I had trouble sleeping, and I was always tired even after 8 hours of rest. I went to doctors, I got tests, and what I heard most often was, it's just part of aging. But deep down, I didn't believe that was the whole story. I wasn't looking for magic. I wasn't expecting to feel 25 again. But I also didn't want to spend the rest of my life relying on pills for everything. I wanted to understand my body, to work with it, not against it, and slowly, through trial, error, and a lot of listening to both my body and the wisdom of others, I began to heal. No prescriptions, no extreme diets, just simple, natural changes rooted in ancient practices and modern common sense. In this video, I'll walk you through how I healed my body after 65 naturally, what I changed, what I let go of, what I added, and how you can do the same, wherever you're starting from. Because aging isn't a breakdown, it's an invitation. And with the right choices, your second half of life can be just as strong, if not stronger. Part 1. My body was speaking, and I finally started listening. It didn't happen all at once. My body didn't just collapse one day. It was more like a slow drip, a steady erosion of energy and strength that I kept brushing off as normal aging. I'd wake up stiff. My knees would ache going down the stairs, and I'd need more coffee just to get through the morning. At first, I joked about it. That's what 65 looks like, I guess. I'd say, but somewhere deep down, I knew better. You see, the body doesn't scream at first, it whispers, and I had spent years ignoring the whispers. Little things. I wasn't digesting certain foods well anymore. My sleep was lighter and less restorative. I'd get headaches more often. My skin was drier. My moods were swinging a little more than usual. Nothing dramatic, but enough that I didn't feel like myself anymore. I thought I was just tired from life, from years of working, parenting, caregiving, surviving, and maybe I was, but I also wasn't helping my body bounce back. I wasn't giving it what it needed. One evening, after yet another day of fatigue and bloating, I sat in my chair and just paused. I asked myself a question I hadn't considered in years. What if my body isn't broken? What if it's just trying to get my attention? That was the turning point. I started paying attention to how I felt after meals. I noticed which foods made me sluggish. I observed how I slept after eating late or watching TV before bed. I started keeping a small notebook, not fancy, just a few pages where I wrote down how I felt, physically and emotionally, and slowly. Patterns began to emerge. I realized I had been disconnected from my own body for decades. Always pushing, always doing, rarely asking, how are you really doing? Once I started listening, not judging, not rushing to fix, but just listening, I began to understand what my body had been asking for all along: rest, nourishment, movement, calm. That's where real healing began, not with a supplement or a superfood or a trendy hack, but with awareness. We often wait for a diagnosis to start caring for ourselves, but the body gives us clues long before that. And if you're willing to pay attention, even just a little, it will guide you gently back to balance. Part 2, the first change I made and why it mattered more than I thought. After years of pushing through pain, ignoring fatigue, And calling discomfort normal, I finally accepted that something had to change. But with so many things going wrong, poor sleep, joint pain, digestion issues, I didn't know where to begin. So I asked myself a simple question. What part of my day do I have the most control over? And the answer was clear: my mornings. It may sound small, even unimportant, but how I started my day turned out to be the first domino in a long line of healing changes. Before that, my mornings were chaotic in their own quiet way. I'd wake up groggy and go straight to the coffee machine. Most mornings, I skipped breakfast or grabbed something quick and processed a slice of toast, a sweet muffin, whatever was easy. Then I'd turn on the news, check emails, scroll through headlines that filled me with anxiety. And by the time it was 9 a.m., I was already tense, tired, and overwhelmed, and the day had barely begun. So, I made one small but firm decision: no phone, no TV, no coffee for the first hour of my day. Instead, I gave myself space. I started drinking a glass of warm lemon water right after waking up. I would sit by the window, stretch gently, and just breathe. Sometimes I'd write a few thoughts down in a journal, nothing poetic, just honest. How do I feel today? What do I need more of? What do I need less of? And I'd make a light, nourishing breakfast: oats with berries, eggs with greens, or simply a banana with a handful of nuts. It wasn't just about being healthy, it was about being intentional, about creating a quiet foundation for my day instead of being swept up in noise and stimulation. What surprised me was how quickly I started to feel different. My mornings no longer left me frazzled. I had more energy. My digestion improved. My thoughts were clearer. And most of all, I felt like I had taken something back: agency. I was no longer just reacting to life. I was directing it. Changing my mornings didn't fix everything, but it reminded me that healing doesn't begin with doing something huge. It begins with choosing to care for yourself consistently, even in the smallest ways. That first hour of the day became sacred. It became a message to myself. You matter. Your peace matters. Your body is listening. And that one shift led to everything else that followed. Part 3. The food shift. I learned to eat to heal, not just to fill up. For most of my life, food was about two things: comfort and convenience. I ate what tasted good and what was easy: frozen dinners, bread with every meal, sugary snacks in the afternoons, and of course, coffee, lots of it. I didn't think of food as medicine. I thought of it as fuel, or frankly, a reward. But after 65, my body started telling a different story. I was bloated more often. I'd feel heavy after meals. Even if I didn't eat that much, I had acid reflux, joint stiffness, and energy crashes that left me needing a nap by 2 p.m. At first, I thought I had developed food intolerances. I got some blood tests. The results weren't shocking, but they confirmed what I already suspected: my body wasn't digesting the foods I had relied on for decades the way it used to. Bread, cheese, processed meats, fried foods, these were taking more than they were giving. That's when I made a new choice: not a diet, not a cleanse, not a trendy program, just a decision to eat in a way that supported healing. I started simple. I began cooking more at home, using whole ingredients: vegetables, legumes, wild-caught fish, good olive oil, turmeric, garlic, ginger. I swapped white bread for sprouted grain. I traded processed snacks for fresh fruit and raw nuts. I added more herbs, more color to my plate, more life. And instead of rushing through meals, I sat down. I slowed down. I chewed with intention. I listened to how my body responded. And slowly, that foggy heaviness began to lift. Was it easy? No. I missed old habits, especially the sweet things. But I also noticed something amazing. My taste buds started to change. Real food began to taste good. I didn't crave the old things like I used to. And after a few weeks, I realized I hadn't taken antacids in days. My stomach felt calmer. My energy lasted longer. My joints were a little less stiff. Food became something sacred again, not a source of guilt or confusion, but a tool for restoration. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to count every calorie or follow every trend, but if you start asking your body what feels nourishing and you pay attention to what it tells you, you'll know. You'll know which foods are giving you life and which are quietly taking it away. That awareness alone changed everything. Part 4, movement as medicine. I didn't exercise. I learned to move again. If you had told me at 65 that movement, not pills, would be one of my greatest sources of healing, I probably would have laughed. Back then, I associated exercise with gyms, loud music, sweat, and sore knees. I thought it was something for young people, or at least people who enjoyed that sort of thing. But here's what I came to understand. Movement isn't about exercise. It's about staying alive in your body. After years of sitting at desks, in cars, on couches, my body had become stiff, tight, and disconnected. I couldn't touch my toes. My hips hurt when I got out of bed. I'd get winded walking up the stairs. But the real wake-up call came when I almost fell in the shower, not because I was weak, but because I was unbalanced. That moment scared me, and it made me realize if I didn't use my body, I would lose it. So I started small, and I didn't call it working out. I just called it moving again. Every morning, I began with 5 minutes of gentle stretching, reaching my arms overhead, rolling my shoulders, turning my neck slowly side to side. Then I added 10-minute walks around the block. I didn't push myself. I didn't care about burning calories. I just moved with presence. Eventually, I added light body weight exercises, slow squats using a chair, standing on one leg to practice balance, lifting water bottles like tiny dumbbells. I followed online videos for seniors that focused on joint mobility, breathing, and low-impact strength. And to my surprise, I started looking forward to it because something shifted. I wasn't moving to punish my body. I was moving to honor it. The benefits came quickly. My posture improved. I had fewer aches. My digestion got better. I slept deeper. But more than that, I felt capable again. I trusted my body in a way I hadn't in years. I felt safer walking, standing, bending, and just being in motion. Movement became my medicine, not because it cured everything, but because it reminded my body it was still alive, still able, still worthy of care. And if you're reading this thinking it's too late for me, let me gently say it's not. Your body may be older, yes, but it's also wiser. It remembers how to heal. You just have to invite it back into motion, one gentle step at a time. Part 5, the role of rest. I learned to truly rest, not just lie down for years. I thought I understood rest. I thought rest was going to bed at night, lying on the couch after a long day, or taking a nap when I felt drained. But as I got older and as my body started to slow down, I realized I didn't really know how to rest at all. Yes, I was lying down, but my mind, it was racing, thinking about what I didn't get done, replaying old conversations, worrying about tomorrow, next month, next year. I wasn't resting. I was just lying still while carrying a heavy mental load. And that's when I learned real rest is not just physical, it's nervous system deep. Rest is about more than sleep. It's about safety, stillness, recovery. It's about sending a signal to your body and your brain that it's okay to soften, to release, to stop holding everything together for a little while. So, I began to explore new kinds of rest. I started by turning off stimulation, no TV or news before bed. I replaced it with calming music, dim lights, or soft reading. I gave myself permission to do nothing without feeling guilty. I even started taking what I now call intentional pauses, 5-minute moments during the day where I close my eyes, place one hand on my heart, and simply breathe. I also stopped pushing through tiredness. If my body said slow down, I listened. That was new for me. I had always been someone who kept going, even when my energy ran dry. But now, I choose to honor my limits, not resent them. And do you know what happened when I began to rest, truly rest? My sleep got deeper, my digestion improved, my moods became steadier, my thoughts felt clearer, I had fewer headaches, and for the first time in years, I felt like my body wasn't fighting me anymore. It was working with me. Rest isn't laziness, it's restoration, especially after 60 sonon, when the body is already doing the hard work of repairing itself behind the scenes. You don't need to earn rest. You don't need to wait until you're exhausted. You need to make space for it, intentionally, every day. Because healing doesn't just happen in action, it happens in the quiet, in the space between doing and being, when your body finally feels safe enough to repair itself. And that kind of rest, that's where real transformation begins. Part 6, letting go of the old stories. The mind needs healing. Up until this point, I had been focused on the body, what I was eating, how I was moving, how I was sleeping. But one day, while sitting in the quiet, it hit me I could eat all the kale in the world, stretch every muscle I had, and get 8 hours of sleep every night. But if I kept replaying the same old thoughts, I'd never truly heal, because healing isn't just physical, it's mental, emotional, spiritual. We all carry stories in our minds, stories we've been telling ourselves for years, sometimes decades. I'm too old to change. I've always been this way. That's just my luck. No one listens to me. I'm not enough. Maybe they started from something someone said to us once. Maybe they came from hardship or heartbreak. But over time, they settled in like background music, always playing quietly underneath our lives. And those stories, they shape our biology more than we realize. They affect how we breathe, how we hold tension in our shoulders, in our jaw, in our gut. They influence how we treat ourselves, what we believe we deserve, how much rest we allow, whether we trust ourselves to heal. So I began to ask myself, what stories am I still carrying that no longer serve me? That simple question changed everything. I realized I had been holding on to guilt for things I didn't cause. I was still measuring my worth by how productive I was. I believed I had to be strong for everyone else, even when I was exhausted. And most of all, I didn't fully trust my body anymore. I had internalized the idea that aging meant breaking down, not breaking open. Letting go of those old stories wasn't easy. It's not like flipping a switch. But I started by speaking to myself more gently. I wrote new words in my journal. I am allowed to rest. I can change. I deserve healing. I forgave myself for not knowing better, for waiting too long, for putting myself last. I practiced gratitude not just for what I had, but for what I had survived, for the wisdom I'd earned the hard way, for this body that was still showing up for me. Even after all the years of neglect, and little by little, I felt lighter not just in my joints or my digestion, but in my soul. Healing the mind is the quietest work. No one else sees it, but you feel it in your breath, your posture, your voice, your peace, and in the end, it might just be the most powerful healing of all. Part 7, my daily healing routine. What a healthy day looks like at 67. After months of listening to my body, changing the way I ate, moved, and rested, something remarkable began to happen. My days didn't just feel better. They felt intentional, calmer, more grounded, and people around me started noticing. They'd ask, "What are you doing differently?" My answer was simple. I've created a healing routine that fits the rhythm of my life, not the other way around. So in this part, I want to walk you through what a typical day looks like for me now. Nothing extreme, nothing fancy, just a slow, steady rhythm that supports my well-being. Day by day, morning 7, later a.m. 9 a.m. I start the day without an alarm clock whenever possible. I stretch gently in bed before getting up. The first thing I do is drink a glass of warm water with lemon. It wakes up my digestion and hydrates me before anything else. Then, instead of reaching for my phone, I take 5 to 10 minutes to sit quietly. Sometimes I breathe. Sometimes I write in a small gratitude journal. 3 things I'm thankful for. It sets the tone. Breakfast is simple but nourishing steel-cut oats with flax seeds and blueberries, or a soft-boiled egg with sautéed spinach. I eat slowly, without distractions. If the weather's nice, I sit near sunlight for a few minutes. It helps regulate my body's clock and lifts my mood. Midday, 10:00 a.m., 2:00 p.m. I take a 20-30-minute walk after breakfast, often in silence or listening to calming music or an audiobook. Walking has become both physical and emotional therapy for me. Lunch is light and colorful, maybe a quinoa salad with chickpeas and veggies, or grilled fish with roasted sweet potatoes. I try to chew slowly and notice when I'm full. After lunch, I rest, sometimes a nap, sometimes just closing my eyes. I used to feel guilty doing this, but now I see it as essential. Healing isn't just action, it's stillness. Afternoon to evening, 2:00 p.m., 7:00 p.m. I do something creative: reading, gardening, sketching, even rearranging a drawer, something that makes me feel alive, not just occupied. Dinner is earlier now, usually before 6 p.m. I keep it light: soups, steamed vegetables, herbal tea. I try not to eat after sunset when I can help it. Evenings are for quiet, no TV news, no bright lights. I often take a warm shower, then do a bit of gentle stretching or breathing before bed. I'm usually asleep by 9:30 or 2:00. When I first began this journey after turning 65, I thought healing meant fixing what was broken. I wanted less pain, more energy, fewer pills, better sleep. I wanted to feel strong again, like I used to. And I'll be honest, I was hoping to feel young again. But now, a few years later, I understand something far more important. I didn't go back to being young. I found my way back to myself, that version of me that had been buried under stress, noise, sugar, schedules, painkillers, and expectations. That quiet, wise part of me that had been whispering all along, asking for stillness, for nourishment, for breath. I used to think healing came from something outside of me, a prescription, a professional, a product. But what I've discovered is that true healing is an inside job. It begins the moment you decide to listen, to trust your own signals, to slow down and ask, what do I need not just to survive today, but to feel whole again? I won't tell you this was quick. It wasn't. And I won't pretend it was easy. There were days I wanted to quit, days I slipped back into old habits, days I doubted everything. But now, I wake up without dread, I move without fear, I eat with intention, I rest without guilt, and I no longer feel like I'm waiting for someone else to fix me. I'm not perfect. I still have days where I'm tired, cranky, or creaky in the joints, but I meet those days with softness, with awareness, and most of all, with gratitude, because this body is still here, still showing up for me, still responding to care, even after all these years. And if you're watching this, wondering if it's too late for you, please hear this from someone who once believed the same. It's not too late. You don't need to chase youth. You don't need to erase your years. You just need to return to yourself with kindness, with patience, and with the wisdom you've earned. Healing is not about reversing time. It's about honoring where you are. in choosing to love your body and your life enough to care for it, one day at a time. Thank you for being here with me. If this video gave you hope or reminded you that your best days might still be ahead, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone you love. Your story isn't over. In fact, it may be just beginning.